Everyone, good evening. Thank you all that have joined us online and those that are sitting within this household of faith here tonight. We want to welcome you to a town hall, first town hall for our candidate, Robert Fountain, that is in the running for Granville County Sheriff next year. We're excited about it. This is just a Q&A town hall chat. It is not a debate. And I will introduce our moderator, and she'll introduce the people that are we be part of the Q&A session. But before we do that, we would like to have a brief prayer. Father God, we thank you for allowing us to be in such a place, space, and time as this right now tonight. We thank you for all that we've been able to do on today. We thank you for your blessings of grace and mercy. We ask that you will continue to bless this nation, this country, this United States, this North Carolina state, and this great county of Granville. God, as we begin to have a town hall Q&A, we ask you to bless all those that are concerned in this county and the candidate that's desiring to seek office of a position that he's committed himself for a very long time. For Christ's sake, in Jesus' name that we pray, amen.
Amen.
So at this time, I'm going to introduce our moderator for the evening. She will give you some brief instructions. And with over 20 years of experience in human resources, LaShawn Thorpe has a passion for helping and educating people on all levels. She desires to see people from all walks of life to be treated fairly, given an honest opportunity to succeed, and the chance to truly live their best lives. LaShawn is a licensed North Carolina realtor, the managing owner of two small businesses, and she holds a Master's of Public Administration, Bachelor's in Political Science, and the HRIC Professional in Human Resources certification. So without further ado, I introduce and present to you Ms. LaShawn Thorpe.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, so tonight, first of all, good evening, everyone. Tonight, we will have two individuals that will assist us with our questions. The questions have been submitted already prior to this event, and we had several of them, and we're going to try to get through as many of them as we can. However, starting out, we will ask one question that has been submitted by individuals. So say, for instance, if I submitted 5 questions, we're going to start up with one of my questions, and then we'll move to another individual. And if we get back to me, we do. If not, we'll just try to get to the next time. First of all, we have Ms. Janelle Berkey Marable. She is a Creedmoor resident and employee with the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. She serves on their Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council, as well as a commissioner of the City of Creedmoor's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission. We have Mr. Trey Snide. He's the owner and operator of Next Door Radio, which is a local radio station built around Granville County. Okay, so getting started, we're going to start questions with Ms. Janelle, and we will move forward.
Perfect. Good evening. In 2018 video debate where you were running for sheriff and were in town hall type meeting, you can answer these questions. Can you answer these questions from that video? You discussed getting stopped in a motor vehicle, and if that should happen, the driver should call someone on the phone. Do you still hold that? And if so, have you ever had that happen to you as an LEO? As a deputy, this is a very difficult situation to deal with.
When I address things that want to put our community in a better situation, in a safer situation, because of the climate of the mistrust in law enforcement, and because we have to find ways to bridge the gap, and we have to make sure that everybody's being transparent about what they do and they're accountable for what they do. The statement I said was, if a child, young adult, or anyone gets stopped by law enforcement, everyone has a cell phone. Not every police officer or deputy has body cameras. So turn on your phone. First, call an adult if you're a juvenile. Call your parents, put the phone on speaker, and let them listen to the interaction. Then, if you can, if possible, turn your camera on and let the officer know, hey, I'm recording this as well if you don't have a body camera. So there is no misinterpretation of what an officer said to protect the officer from his perspective. The subject is was stopped from their perspective. Everyone is safe. The transparency is created, even if the funding is not there for body cameras for deputies. So that is what I said, and I still stick by it.
Correct. Thank you. You also state that if there is a problem, to call either you or a member of your leadership team. Are you referring to a command staff or an outside team?
My command staff. Anytime there's a complaint, actually what we're going to do, and my vision is to change a culture. And that culture is even about leadership. So now we have to expand the control, right? The span of control needs to be broadened because you have a sheriff, a chief deputy, and everything runs to the sheriff, the span of control is not where it needs to be as a 21st century law enforcement agency. So what my vision is, we will create a division for internal affairs and complaint resolutions, which will be from either retired or civilian personnel that will not lean towards the sheriff's office, but it would lean towards truth and transparency. So when we have those complaints come in, they're not swept under the rug. And the community advisory board will be made aware of these questions and these issues and complaints. And then the command staff has to find out what happened and do a report and get back to the complainant, not just blow it off and it's done with. So that comes with the trust, truth, and transparency of where we're trying to go.
Perfect. Thank you. What makes you different or stand out from the rest of the known candidates?
What makes me different? First, God put this in my path, right? And what I believe is when God puts you in a position, then you follow those, then order your steps to stay in that lane and do what you're supposed to do when you seek justice. And I think that the passion I have in seeking justice is different than others. I don't go out and browbeat people. I don't discourage or throw shade on people. I worry about what we have and what we're going to bring to the table. You know, a friend of mine told me that justice is like a relay, right? So when you pass the baton in a relay, you're supposed to not drop the baton. So the baton of justice has been dropped. No other person is talking about restoring the public's trust, right? They're talking about what they want to do. What we need to do is restore the trust in the agency that's supposed to protect and serve all of us, not just a few. That's the difference.
Perfect.
What policies would you put in place and why?
We have a lot of things to do in the first 100 days that I'm trying to look at how we're going to shape a narrative or shape policies. Right now, because of the past recent occurrences that have happened in the sheriff's office, they've hired a DEA agent who has been part of writing new policies. We would have to get there to see what they've done, what things they've corrected, what my vision is to bring that change even to further our public safety. But one or two things that we know we're going to do, because there is not a gang suppression program to give these kids something to do other than when they're 16, they hit the street and let the street raise them. We have to look at how we can get churches involved in this kind of partnership with us in the jail system, right? To see how we can implement programs within the jail system. Everybody talks about law enforcement, BLET, and worry about the deputies on the street. What about our incarcerated and justice served individuals in these prisons or jails? So there is no reentry programs that they have. We are going to implement reentry programs, counseling. We have to look at the drug addiction treatment. We have to look at a three-pronged approach upon the reception, orientation, and diagnostic phases of entry into the jail facility. They have not a clue of what they're doing there because I've looked, watched, and learned. So I've shaped my narrative around what they do and what we need to change. But initially, we have to look at the structure, the diversity, the equity and inclusion that's missing. There are no females, Hispanic, Latino in the leadership. We have to change a culture from the inside out.
Perfect.
I'm sorry, that was more than 2 minutes.
No, that's okay. Next question. How will you change the culture? What is the plan? If you can't go into details, what are the broad brushstrokes you would like to see happen?
The plan is to lead by example, and the administrative staff that is there, they will have to meet with me the 1st of December. I think the first Monday of December is when you get sworn in as the sheriff of next year. And once the swearing in happens, the leadership that is there, I will have to deal with them initially and figure out where they are in this whole broad perspective. But they're going to have to run the organization status quo until I can get with the ground troops and deal with the bottom. Because if we don't get the staff motivated to work with us, you're still going to be fighting an uphill battle. So my thing is start at the ground, listen to what they say works. Listen to the ones that execute the duties of the sheriff's office. Then you can better shape policies to meet the obligation, right? So that's the first thing we have to do to change a culture. But then there is no structured promotional system in the sheriff's office. So we have to develop a structure where good deputies who've been looked over because of no structured system, we have to change that, right? Other than that, we have to look at the generational wealth that has been created in the sheriff's office because you can appoint your friends, buddies, and coworkers that you like. So we have to address things from a strategic approach to change the mindsets. We have to sow seeds of responsibility to change minds to alter their behaviors. That's the way we have to change a culture.
Okay, as it relates to actually running for the position of sheriff, why do you want to do that? What is the passion behind that?
My people. God and my people. That's about it.
Give us 3 programs that you would implement first and why.
One is the gang suppression and reduction program. We call it GRASP. Because again, there's nothing to deter these young kids that are in high schools, middle schools, from encouragement of joining gangs and recruitment. So when we started looking at their idle time, right, we have to figure out strategies to address those issues with our kids, black, white, brown, all of them face the same challenges, not just the African-American community when it comes to gang recruitment and proliferation in our communities, right? So the next thing we would do is look at a strategy of our justice served individuals. How do we work with the community supervision and see how we can get these guys home? We can make sure they have something to come home to and do pre-release investigations when we know that somebody's coming home. Community supervision knows they're coming. So why can't the community and the sheriff's office know? And victims know that someone is coming home that they had an issue with, they were victimized by. And we could also look at healing that relationship from a victim and an offender. But that will require a holistic approach, right? So we have to see how can we bring in our clergy to have that conversation? How can we work with community supervision to heal those gaps that are going on now? So everything has to be a complete overhaul of a system of justice that has not been serving us collectively. And lastly, we will look at a reentry program. For the guys in jail, they do 22 and 2. They're probably sitting in the cell 22 hours a day, 2 hours out, right? So we have to look at job opportunity, and there was a program we would call Biz Start. We look at these guys and say, how can we start businesses while they're incarcerated? We look at how can they get their driver's education book part taken care of while they're incarcerated. So we can work with them to get these things done because it will stop them from coming back. Because if you're on probation or parole and you get a driving charge, guess where you're going? Back to jail. So why don't we stop the recidivism by programming at the beginning? And until you implement things to stop that cycle, you're going to continue the pattern of behavior. Those are 3. There are more.
Thank you, sir.
All right, in your last run for sheriff, it was reported that you had a convicted felon as a supporter. Tell us why that happened and how you can avoid that in the future.
We had several convicted felons probably supporting us. And because the general statute now allows convicted felons to vote, then why they can't support you, right? So what did happen, an individual We didn't know who he was. I don't do background checks on people that support me. I don't invade on the privacy of you or anyone else and will not. So if you support me, I appreciate it. You know your limitations of your community supervision or your confinement, post-release supervision, confinement rules and regulations. If you violate those, you have to own that, right? So he owned it, he got arrested, we moved on. And I'm not gonna do background investigations on people that support me because that would take a long time and it's an invasion of your privacy. And I think that's part of one of those great constitutional rights that you have and can maintain. Because I believe in the Constitution, all the amendments, everything that deals with the Constitution. And I'm not gonna violate anything that's reference to our Constitution.
Your 8-page bio indicates that you teach many topics related to law enforcement. Are you BLET certified, or are there classes sanctioned by an agency other than training and standards?
That's the elephant in the room, right? Everybody says, hey, Fountain, you've been to BLET. Let's clarify BLET and what it is. Basic law enforcement training. All right. North Carolina General Statute and North Carolina Sheriff's Training and Standards view all the training that I've done, because the United States Armed Forces runs military police academies, right? Their military police academies are recognized by every state as comparable to BLET. So if you do your research and not just try to throw things out there like, hey, well, you ain't been to BLET and you don't know, then you will do your homework. Only thing that I would have to do to be BLET certified, because my resume is stronger than most of the guys that's working at the sheriff's office now, was take a test for 24, take a test, shoot a pistol, and take 24 hours of civil law. So with being a military policeman, going through probation and parole academy, going through the correction officer basic training, going through having a college degree, I think it kind of outweighs basic law enforcement and training of everything that I've done. And the resume, yeah, it's big, expansive. I teach for Homeland Security. I teach for Rural Domestic Preparedness Consortium. I teach for North Carolina Central University. I teach for Duke University. I teach for East Kentucky University. So I teach nationally programs and courses that they don't even teach in this county. So when I go to any sheriff's department across this country, any law enforcement agency across this country, I'm considered a subject matter expert. And with that, I continue to educate myself, and I will always continue to educate law enforcement officers across this great country, as I've done for years. And we can bring that training and experience to Granville County. I think it would be a blessing to have somebody that can teach you something different that you don't know already.
Rob, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
We speak a lot of gaining trust within our community. How will you start to build trust among staff that has seen abrupt leadership changes recently?
The good deputies of Granville County, the fine detention staff, and those civilian employees that work there have been through a lot in the past 3 years. We've collectively had 3 sheriffs in 3 years. They've suffered the most. They've had the black eye. They get the side eye. And we have to start by taking everybody at the top of the chain, put them in the streets with their subordinate staff. That's how you lead by example. We have to develop a program to where you get out of those cars and go meet your neighbors, because it's easier to develop a relationship with someone you know than someone that drives by, right? So we have to go see these business owners. We have to go into the churches and make ourselves known. We have to embrace this culture of mistrust, because you have to own it before you can heal it. If you keep denying that it doesn't exist, you're telling you living a lie, right? So until we get past and admit to our failures, not one person that's running for this office has apologized to the staff that work there, what they go through, how they are treated, right? I apologize to you. I will make things right because I'm willing to work with you on a daily basis to get it done. Not sit in the office, not go out and be doing other things. We got to be in these streets to meet our people.
Thank you. With the release of recent reports, what internal controls will you implement to prevent deficiencies that have been identified, such as mishandling of evidence?
Um, I read the report, like 14 pages, I believe. And I think the county commissioners have done a good job when they hired an outside individual to come in and look at those things. So there is an outside retired DEA agent currently looking at the problems. And I think the report said it went back over 20 years that our agency has not been in compliance as far as the evidence and the way things were done and the mishandling of things. So my thing is first to keep him on board because he's already set the standard. He's wrote the policies. Then you work with him and you pick his brain to see if it fits your mission, right? So my vision and my thought process, new vision, new direction, if it aligns with what that guy has done there now, he stays. We build on that. But it's about transparency. But before we take any kind of office, before we go into any kind of anything that goes into that sheriff's office, we have to first know what's there, right? So there has never been a change of command audit at the sheriff's office. Somebody goes in, they just take over, keep moving. We need to have a change of command audit before I get there. We need to have an outside resources, law enforcement, community engagement people to go in and help verify what's there. Once we do that, I can take that report, I take it to the county commissioner, I take it to the county attorney, I take it to the county manager. I own this. Anything other than that, I have nothing to do with. I got to take ownership for what's mine, and I know what's there once this audit is done because community is part of getting it done. That's how we kind of heal this thing and build on.
I just heard you mention a new vision. So talk about the difference in a revision, a re-imaging versus defunding the department.
It's amazing of people saying that I want to defund the sheriff's office, right? What sense does it make for you to defund the job that you want? Right? And for me, it does not make sense. However, when I say reimagine, we have to look at the wasteful spending. So when I did a budget analysis to see what the wasteful spending was, we have a plan that's going to save us about $700,000 to $1.8 million in the first 2 years that we get there. I can't tell you what it is because somebody else will be using it later. So we have a plan to take money that's wasteful spending, put it into programs, and put it into diversionary programs to work with the DA. We work with teen court, again, work with our churches, our civic organizations to stop them from coming into the criminal justice system. So if we can take those funds and divert them to programs and release and reentry, then we can heal a community. We change a culture. Because locking the people up, yeah, I'm tough on crime. I will tell you this, and everybody that knew me in the prison, we follow rules. Instant obedience to orders is discipline. Discipline and structure leads to productive behavior, right? So in those same contexts, we have to make sure that we reimagine, we revisit the new vision, the shaping, getting rid of the heavy, the chain of command is kind of high, heavy at the top heavy, real top heavy. I think you have a captain, 2 captains in the jail, you have a jail administrator, you got 8 or 9 lieutenants, you have a captain over patrol, you have a captain over administration, you got a chief deputy, then you have the sheriff. It's too many people at the top. We have to make sure that our communities are taken care of. So reimagining that means to restructure. It doesn't mean fire people. It means put people in positions that are effective. So if you're an effective leader or you're an effective person, then I need you to stay where you are. If you're not, we have to retrain people to get them to buy into what we're trying to do. There will be some people that leave on their own accord. If you have not violated the public's trust, you will have a job at the Granville County Sheriff's Office. And the way that I will find that out, everybody's got to reapply. Everybody's got to get interviewed by my community advisory board and my staff and me. Then we will go through a process of, hey, how do we set up a promotional system? You're just not going to be given a promotion from now on. You're going to work for what you do and be rewarded for that. The ones at the bottom who bust their butts need more incentives to stay. And we got to fight for better working conditions. We have to fight for funding. We're looking at certain things I will not say right now. I'll wait. But we're looking at plans and strategies to increase our officers and not put it on our taxpayers. We're looking at vehicle assets. We're looking at equipment. We're looking at anything to make us better. And that's the reimagining of this agency.
One other question before I turn it over to Trey and LaShawn. As we come up 85 southbound or headed north, one of the first things that we notice in Granville County is the new sheriff's department or the new complex of the sheriff's department. And we can go a little bit more up north and we can see schools closing here in Granville County. So when elected, how will you partner with the school to reduce the pipeline of school to prison?
Great question. We don't have enough school resource officers, right? We have auxiliary deputies that hold a certification in this county, but not work in this county. Their certifications are held, but they don't work. So we have to find a means to make us more visible in schools, using auxiliary deputies to be school resource officers. So we can use them to implement these welcome aboard when they come to school, high-fiving the kids, not sitting in the patrol cars and then you got to rush to another school because you don't have enough coverage. We're going to have an adopt a school program because we're going to go to a district in concept as far as law enforcement. You will have a district. Once we get there, we're going to create district and zones that people need to work in. They need to stay in those district and zones unless they're emergency or they need backup. Then we'll take them and say, hey, every day you need to go and see your school. If you're not on a call and you're patrolling, drop in and see the schools. Drop in during lunch. Be there so the kids can know you. Be an example for them to feel that, hey, it's not an adversarial approach with the sheriff's office in our community. Because we need to figure out a way to where we're friends in one community. Because when you take that uniform off, guess what? You're still a deputy, but you're still a member of this community. So why not make it more of a family type thing versus an adversarial thing? And people fail to realize that leadership, this is part of kingdom building. So when we incorporate God into the equation to make sure that we have a faith-based movement to help heal this community, because it's just not going to be me that's going to have to do it. It's going to be this community that has to heal this whole process. Because I cannot heal anything if I don't know what you are upset about or what I hurt you. So if you offend your brother, as James Baldwin would say, go to your brother, tell your brother, I will not betray you if you do not believe the negative things they're saying about you. That's what I believe. Don't believe the things they tell you. Believe what I show you. I'm sorry.
Is there any baggage you have that voters do not know about?
I'm gonna snitch on myself. Yes, there is baggage. I pour too much and give too much. That takes away from my family. That's baggage. This election is not about just me. It's about what my wife and my son have to endure, what my pastor and my church family have to endure because of me, right? So anything I do, I'm under a microscope no matter where I go, and people are looking for some baggage. The only baggage people will find, and I will tell you this, I ran a Supermax facility in this county. There is one Supermax facility in this state. And it's at Polk Correctional now, Granville Correction. So when people understand that I believe in structure and discipline, because the military instilled that in me. The United States Marine Corps instilled that military kind of concept of everything, order and discipline. So the baggage is, I'm gonna do what I say, and I expect my staff to do the same thing. I expect to be held accountable, and I promise you, I will check you if you're wrong where you stand. Because there is no, oh, let's go down the street and let's talk about it and hide from what you did. No, we're gonna do on-the-spot correction. That's baggage, because I may step on your toes, but I want you to understand, I got your back when you do right. I'm gonna check you when you do wrong, and we move on. If you can't take it, I'm sorry. But that's the baggage. There's not really a lot. Let's see. I'm trying to think, give you something. I'm trying to give you something. There's not, I'm a gun guy. I have 20 world bench press records. That was baggage because I stayed in the gym too much. But I don't have any baggage. That's it. You know, the only baggage I got is people say I ain't been to BLET. So that's yeah. That's that.
You state that you were recruited by the FBI, DEA as an undercover operative and required to be the WIT Pro program. Most people once in the program never get out. Can you explain?
Yeah, I think somebody took what I said out of context. So when I was down at Lackland Air Force Base, as a Marine, we were stationed at an Air Force base in San Antonio. And people should understand that Marines have a mentality that is different than others. And Air Force guys have a mentality that doesn't align with the Marine thought process. So anyway, because I was there, I was an honor graduate out of Marine Corps recruit training. I was an honor grad coming out of basic law enforcement or military police academy. The first sergeant down there, the Naval Investigative Service, State Bureau of Investigations of North Carolina, Onslow County Sheriff's Department, Jacksonville PD. They were looking for someone straight out of military police academy. Just so happens that person was me. And because of the things and the skill sets that I had, I could shoot well. I was a guy from the street. And they could tell that. But they could tell I was articulate enough to get my way into things, out of things, and I was black. And they needed someone to go down to Court Street and be in the neighborhoods and integrate into the community. So once I did that and served with those individuals and did what we did as far as the investigations, we then, at the conclusion, they decided to put me in a witness protection type of program, but that was assigned to the SWAT team. Wherever I went, I had to go with the SWAT team at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. That was the type of protective detail that I was assigned to, not the federal witness protection program. So as I said in 2018, I was assigned with and to the special operations, the SWAT team down in Jacksonville, Onslow County, Camp Lejeune. And as part of the protection, I had to go with them where they trained. And I went with them where they trained, and then they started to figure out, oh, this guy's pretty good at what he does. So I went from an entry man to running as a non-commissioned officer with Sergeant Faust was the NCOIC, Captain Tate was the major, the commander. I went from being just an entry guy, just a guy coming off the streets, because I had lost the whole military thought process, right? So I had started being just the, I think they got a technical problem. So anyway, I started training with them, going through the training, became a scout sniper. Ultimately, I took over as a non-commissioned officer in charge of the SWAT team down at Camp Lejeune. The witness protection program that person is talking about is something totally different. than what they had put me under at Camp Lejeune. Y'all go ahead. I don't know what they're doing.
All right. How can you fix the sheriff's department?
Find out what's broken. You can have the thoughts in the world about what you're going to do and who you are and what you want to envision. But until you actually take day one and get there, it's just all conjecture and speculations. We know that the trust is not there. We know that. But do we know about the civil processing? Do we know about the jails? Do we know about the extradition? Do we know about, and again, people miss the bigger component of the jail, the sheriff. His responsibility, his constitutionally held position is about the courthouse, jail, serving papers are the three key critical things that he does. The enforcement side of the house and the patrols are different. So until we get in, we do the ride along programs. We have the supervisors go with their staff. We look at those field training officers, how they do things. We look at the detention staff. We look at the entry. We look at when they're coming in. Is there a mental health evaluation when these guys go in? Is there a drug screening when they're going into the jail system? We have to sit there and evaluate this entire process. That's why I pledged to have a community advisory board, which will work with me, retired and current law enforcement LEOs, and members of the community. We're going to start a program where we say, here's an application. If you want to be a part of the community advisory board, we will have stipulations that allow you to be a part of the process to help shape and rebuild the sheriff's office and the trust in it. It will also be those same individuals when we put a structured promotional system in place. We will be able to say, hey, the community, come in, look at these applicants, be on the interview boards with them, make your recommendations to me, and then we will make a recommendation that this person best suits the vision and purpose and plan for our agency. So we got to get there first. I can have all the ideas in the world, but until I get there, myself and my team will not know what we need to fix. I know we need to change a culture and rebuild the public's trust. Those things I do know.
Thank you.
All right. Politicians make promises and tell lies all the time to their voters. How can we trust that what you are saying is the truth?
I'm not a politician. That's simple. And it's up to the community to hold me accountable, right? So if I tell you I'm gonna do something, hold me accountable for it. Publicly hold me accountable for it. Hey, Fountain, you said you were gonna do this. Again, our community advisory board would be representatives from the 7 districts in our community. We have 7 county commissioners. We're gonna ask the county commissioners to give us 2 to 3 people out of every district, right? So they will meet with me monthly initially, then quarterly. Once we get a plan of action, those 7 people will then be able to go back to their communities, 7, it'll be 21 people actually, right? 3 from every district. They will be able to go back to their communities and say, hey, here's what we think. Here's what I told Fountain. Here's what he had committed to do for us. Hold me accountable the first time I don't do what I say I'm gonna do. And then every other time, hold me accountable. Because that's the truth and transparency where we have to go. If we don't, we're going to continue the same thing and get the same results. Albert Einstein, and I use this in my gang training all the time, if you continue to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result is truly insanity, right? So if that's the case, then why we keep doing the same thing? It's time to stop. It's time to reimagine what the sheriff's office could be with your help.
Rob, with
Yes.
the recent gun violence that occurred at our neighboring courthouse in Person County, do you see the need for any immediate changes within the Granville County Courthouse to ensure safety?
First, my thoughts, prayers, and my church's thoughts and prayers are with the children of the shooting that happened in Michigan, where that violent incident occurred with the teenager that went in. We have to look at, and then we think about right here in Durham, we had a shooting at the mall that a lot of us frequent, right? We have to do something to change that culture of gun violence. And to your point about the sheriff's office or the courthouse, we have to be stricter. We have to look at how we can incorporate more security and more efficiency, right? We have to do things that break the cycle of what we've been doing. So part of the plan that we're gonna implement, and I will give somebody this, work with the DA's office, the judges, to hold court on Saturdays, right? So people don't have to take off work to go take care of their business. Have the auxiliary deputies who want to do some work on Saturdays, to have the sheriff's office open on Saturdays. So if you work Monday through Friday and you can't get there, you won't have to take off work because we're gonna have the sheriff's office open for you. So until we start to look at how to change this culture and to reimagine it, not to say it's some extreme radical idea, because I was called a radical demoncrat. So no, it's doing the right thing. If being radical is doing the right thing, sign me up. But the courthouse security, we gotta have better patrols, we gotta have better accountability. We have to look at CellSense or CellBrite, which is a phone and weapons technology that the prisons use to detect cell phones going into the jails, right? So we have to start using that at the courthouse. We have to do better searching protocols with people going in. We have to start looking at ghost guns getting into the courthouse, into the jail system. So those things are always things that we have to do better. We have to look at from a structured standpoint of doing better than what we're doing now.
Last question for me. What is your position on identifying Granville County law enforcement employees who may choose to become members of the domestic terrorist organization?
Run that by me again.
What is your position on identifying Granville County law enforcement employees who may choose to become members of the domestic terrorist organization?
If you pose a threat to the safety and security of this community, I don't care if you're a domestic terrorist, gang member, or whatever you want to call yourself, you will be held accountable for your actions. I don't care what it is, the Constitution and the laws of the land are what we're going to uphold. Now, there are things, and I look at a gang member or domestic terrorist in the same kind of fishbowl. There are signs and there is legislation in place to identify people who are part of gangs, right? GS 53-16 and 14. Those are the criteria where I validated over 5,000 individuals in the prison system as gang members. But we then have to look at how do we look at staff that have an affiliation that compromise the safety and security of jails or the sheriff's office, right? So if you are identified as a member, you can't work for me. That's simple. I'm forgiving, I am compassionate, but if your integrity is in question, if you do anything to violate your oath of office or to betray the public's trust, you cannot work for me.
Rob, you spoke a lot about how you will support the community once you become sheriff and how you will support the staff within the department. What does support look like from the community when you become elected? How can the community support you?
I think the biggest thing is be willing to have a partnership, to be willing to have open dialogue, to be willing to come and see what we do, to be willing to say, hey, we don't agree with this. We don't like what you're doing, but on the same token, pat my guys on the back when you see them. You give them a black eye now because of what's going on. So why don't you say, hey, you guys are doing a great job and support them, right? Because that is what we need. That's what the support that we need. And we need the ideas to make things better because I don't have all the answers. There is no one person that is smart as the collective. That's the way I supervise. That's the way I manage. We have to do this in a collaborative effort to get better, to bring this to a 21st century organization that everyone can be proud of, that have trust and confidence. Even the inmates need to trust the staff, right? They're not gonna, inmates can save your life to let you know, hey, something's bad gonna happen tomorrow you may be aware of, right? But that only comes with trust. They understand the rules and the regulations, right? So we have to do a better job in treating them like human beings first. Because when they get out of jail, guess what they're gonna be? Your neighbor. So until we start to realize that and internalize that and understand because they committed a violation of felony or misdemeanor or anything, they're still humans first. Let's do that. And once the community sees that we're doing the right thing, they will be more supportive because we're going to offer them opportunities to be engaged with us. I think that is what support looks like for me.
Kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. Due to the fact that the past two sheriffs have had legal issues, how are you going to be different?
I'm going to stay out of trouble. No, it comes with transparency. It comes with accountability. And it comes with this community advisory board and me listening to others. You cannot make the same mistakes as others, and you cannot manage the way others did. Because my decision, the way I do things, is to make sure my team is on board with what I do. Ultimately, if I have a group of directors that surround me that help me make informed decisions, I own them, right? Because I'm the sheriff. However, I will be able to run things past them and not just run a dictatorship. I run an organization that is built on a collaborative mindset of doing the right thing. So when the community says, hey, Fountain, we need more patrols down here, we need to, in the Wilton area, I need to go and look at it. My deputies need to go and look at it. My administrators need to go and look at it. I own what we do. And then you hold me accountable when I do what I say or not. And it comes with a good relationship with the DA. The DA has got to be on board. He helps us build cases, and he has to be informed when we're going to do things. Working with community supervision to conduct operations, working with the DA, DEA, FBI, U.S. Marshal, those relationships we have to rebuild, reshape. And because those things have been kind of strained, I have to be able to be held to a different standard. I want to be held to a different standard. Not just say, do it because I'm the sheriff. We're not doing that. That's not the way I've ever led any organization, from the military through corrections, through probation and parole.
We have a repeat question. We have some folks that entered the town hall a little late. Do you mind re-answering this question? What is your interpretation of defunding the police?
My interpretation is I don't have one because I don't believe in it. I don't believe in defunding the police. So I can't give you any other interpretation of this. Nothing I believe in. I believe in making sure that the assets are effectively spent. I believe in fiscal responsibility, but I do believe in wasteful spending. We can repurpose that money for social programs to help and break the chain migration from schools to prisons or jail. So those are the things I look at as far as somebody saying defunding the police. I don't believe in it. I look at doing things a little different, using your tax dollars in a more efficient way.
Can you talk about diversity in the department? How important is diversity within the department, meaning the staff that is hired and retained?
Diversity has been lacking as it stands now. When I look at the administration, I don't see any females. I see one African-American male out of about 12 in a supervisory role. For me, first is about the education qualification, right? You cross that bridge first, then it's about being reflective of the community in which we live and serve. You cannot continue To have an agency that does not look like the community it serves, it creates a part of that distrust, right? We have no females in leadership. That cannot go on because females are a bigger part of the population in Granville County than males. They are a bigger part of the ones that take care of our children, right? So we have to look and reflect the community in which we serve. In the jail system, there is not a female in leadership. Why? They're qualified to. I've spoken and know some of these individuals. They are qualified to be in those positions. But it goes back to what I said before. There has not been a structured promotional system that promotes you based on the weight of your education, experience, and training. We're going to bring that to take care of the diversity and inclusion part of it. But you got to do your part as a deputy. You got to do your part as an administrator to make sure you're educated, trained, and seek those opportunities in a professional development standard to make me say you're worthy of getting promoted. But guess what? You got to interview in front of my community advisory board. You got to interview in front of those deputies and directors that I put in place. Once they do the background investigation, see that you are qualified, they will recommend 2 to 3 individuals for me to consider for promotion. Then we move forward. But it's going to be fair and balanced. It's going to be inclusive, and it's going to be something to make everyone proud of. I'm sorry.
Rob, can you elaborate on your support of a civilian review board?
100%. Unless it's a personnel issue, we have to keep personnel issues separate. But again, the Community Advisory Board will work with my Internal Affairs Director. The Internal Affairs Director will work with the Community Advisory Board and the Citizens Advisory Council and be able to give it certain things about certain incidents that they can take back to the community so the transparency is there. That continues to build the trust of an agency. So until we get to that, we're going to continue the pattern of mistrust. So I'm all for it.
We have one last question. What are your thoughts on Black Lives Matter?
What are my thoughts on Black Lives Matter? I believe Black Lives Matter, right? I believe all lives matter, but this is where people kind of try to throw this thing out of context, right? Black Lives Matter was created to point you in a direction of mistreatment of a particular group of individuals, not to say that their lives will mean more than yours. It was to say, hey, this is how we feel we've been treated. All lives matter. But people were trying to show you a systemic pattern that was going on. That's why it started to happen. That's why the energy was there. But we turned it, people in general, not a lot of folks, they turned it to something different, to be divisive, right? So when somebody can tell me that our Hispanic and Latino brothers mean more to them than others, when people can say that Black lives matter, when people can say that white lives matter, we'd be in a better place. We all matter, but the thing that Black Lives Matter was trying to teach people or tell people was, this is how we feel that has happened historically to a group of people. And that narrative got twisted because people wanted to keep us separated and divided. That's all it was. But yes, all lives matter, Black lives matter, blue lives matter. So why we just can't be God's children and all matter, right?
All right. Do we have any additional questions online? Trey, do you have any additional? Do we have any questions in the audience? Okay. So we're going to take these last few minutes and we're going to allow Mr. Fountain to close this out in his own words.
First, again, thanks to my team, thanks to my church, thanks to my pastor for her support and allowing us to be here. And I don't want people to think that this was an opportunity to say that somebody endorsed me. I asked my church, could I hold this here because I am a faith-based man, right? I believe in God first, our Constitution second. But because we're starting Monday, I wanted people to know where my faith is first, where my conviction falls. And you can come at me after that all you want to. I'm good with it because God got my back. My team is on my side, right? I want the community to join me, and it's a part of history that we're shaping. This is something that has not happened in 275 years of our community. Not just for a Black man, it's for a community. And when I say we, I tell people it's not about me. I'm just the face of something. I'm going to represent the entire community into the entirety. But what's important, people understand where I came from, who I am, and whose I am. So join me, check out the social media platform, the website. Thank you, Brother Hackney. Thank you for the ones that came and attended this intimate setting. Monday, we kick it off, and we're ready to go. Thank you. You feel it?